Hello and welcome to an extra special Geek TV. We're back in our dingy nerd heaven to celebrate, debate and get thoroughly nerdy about the arrival of the 12th Doctor. Spoiler alert, it's Peter Capaldi. Here to talk about the casting of the 12th Doctor and everything that it entails is our resident king of nerd, Mr. Morgan Jeffrey. Say hello, Morgan.
Hello.
First things, Morgan, you promised on Friday in the office to everyone who works at Digital Spy that Peter Capaldi would not be the Doctor.
Yeah.
You bet £10 of British sterling, which is 4 times your yearly salary. You promised that he would not be coming out on stage on Friday night, on Sunday night.
Yeah.
He did come out.
He did.
Were you surprised? What was your face like?
I was incredibly surprised. My face was one thing, my language was another. It was just as well that I was sat right at the back of the studio audience and that they didn't catch me on camera. Because, I'm really pleased that he has been cast. I think he's a great choice. But I was convinced there was no way Peter Capaldi was going to be the 12th Doctor, just because he signed up to another big BBC show, The Musketeers, which they're going to air in 2014, and he's sort of the chief villain in that show. And I thought, there's no way they're going to have Peter Capaldi be, the hero of one of the biggest BBC dramas in 2014, and then also have him play the main villain in another huge BBC show next year. That seemed to make no sense to me, seemed to be a little bizarre. But it turns out I'm an imbecile and I don't know anything. So I don't know what I'm doing here, really.
I was surprised because he is so well known, Peter Capaldi, to so many people, as mainly as Malcolm Tucker. Do you think that will have any impact on people, how they perceive him as the Doctor, or do you think that will go out the window from his first episode? Yeah,
well, like you said, it is a really unusual choice in the fact that he's very well known. He has that. We were talking previously about how most Doctors don't have one iconic role that defines them before they're cast, and he very much does. A lot of people do know him as Malcolm Tucker. Not only that, but he's been in Doctor Who before, which Colin Baker also was. So that's there's precedent for that. But he also had a really sort of major role in the third series of Torchwood. So it is quite an unusual choice to cast Peter Capaldi. But then, on the other hand, I think, if you put aside Doctor Who, you put aside Torchwood, and most importantly, you put aside Malcolm Tucker, he is a brilliant actor, and he is sort of a really sort of charismatic and interesting presence on screen. We've both interviewed him. We know he's like a really nice guy. So I think he'll be a really good ambassador for the show in the same way that Matt Smith was.
What's going to be intriguing, I think, is everyone's presuming he's going to be a darker, edgier Doctor, but Peter Capaldi isn't Malcolm Tucker. We can say we have met him. He is not an angry, sweary man. Parents, you can let your children still watch Doctor Who. Do you think there's a chance that he might camp it up? He might not be a darker Doctor. It could be a lighter Doctor.
I don't know. I think what's interesting is Stephen Moffat has talked a bit about how, because when Matt Smith was introduced in the 11th Hour, he had to be a very traditional Doctor in a way, because he didn't have any of the familiar elements from David Tennant's era to kind of reassure viewers. So he has to be kind of the archetypal Doctor, and he has to be kind of eccentric and goofy and fun and accessible. Whereas this time around, you've still got Jenna Coleman as Clara. You've got, I think they're going to bring back Vastra and Jenny and Strax. So you've got familiar characters. Even the TARDIS is the same. And so I think you could maybe push the 12th Doctor a little bit further. He could be, at least initially, a darker character, something a bit more unfamiliar to viewers, because they've got other elements from the show to kind of comfort them and reassure them.
What would you like the dynamic between Capaldi and Jenna Coleman to be like on the show? Because obviously at the moment there's quite a lot of affection between the Matt Smith Doctor and Clara. Would you like to see that shaken up a bit with the new Doctor? Yeah,
and I think it will be, because people talk sometimes about romantic tension between the Doctor and his companion, especially in the sort of the modern series. But there's not actually been that much of that between the 11th Doctor and Clara. So I don't think having an older 12th Doctor will affect that. But on the other hand, as I say, I think Stephen Moffat does want to shake things up a little bit. So I do think you're going to have a very different Doctor than we've had previously, and I think that relationship with Clara might be tested.
So we didn't get a female Doctor or a black Doctor. We have got an older Doctor, not the oldest ever.
Second oldest, I think. I think Peter Capaldi's like a couple of months younger than William Hartnell, so he's the second oldest ever, but there's not a lot in it.
But he's one of the oldest, and considerably older than Tennant and Matt Smith, and even older than Eccleston. Do you think that's quite a brave move from BBC and Moffat to cast a sort of older figure?
I think it is a brave move, but I also think it's quite a smart move on their part, given that if you cast someone who's in their 20s or even in their early 30s, as Matt Smith is now, there's inevitably going to be then comparisons to Matt Smith. And just by virtue of being a couple of decades older, Peter Capaldi is immediately set apart from Matt Smith. So I think it's harder to make comparisons, and you want the Doctor to be different each time. That's part of the novelty and the fun of the show. So if they had gone for someone younger, It might have been safer in terms of marketability, maybe. I don't know if you're going to have, fangirls editing Peter Capaldi, love tribute YouTube videos. Maybe you will.
Speak for yourself, Morgan. Speak for yourself.
But no, we'll just get the thick of it mashups. But I definitely think in terms of storytelling, it's a far more interesting choice than it would have been casting someone closer to Matt Smith's age.
Yeah, and I think that was probably a problem with casting Matt Smith. I mean, Matt Smith's done brilliantly in the role, and I think I love him. But I think there was obviously having someone like him after David Tennant, it sort of encouraged almost like the fan wars between the people comparing them.
And they did get a lot of stick when Matt Smith was cast, saying, "Oh, why is it another younger Doctor? Why is it a pretty boy Doctor? It's not Twilight, it's Doctor Who," and all that kind of nonsense. So I think this time there was a real sort of desire on fans' parts to see an older Doctor, and I guess they were listening.
The big debate on the Digital Spy forums since the casting is what's he going to wear?
That's the all-important question.
What would you like to see Peter Capaldi coming out in?
What I would like to see with Capaldi in a cape. Yeah, I want to bring back the cape as a fashion accessory, because John Pertwee wore a cape, Patrick Troughton occasionally sported a cape, and I think Capaldi could do for capes what Matt Smith did for bow ties.
Has a Doctor had a beard before, Morgan?
There has never been a bearded Doctor, and obviously as a beard fan myself, I would happily see Capaldi sport some facial hair. I think that would be very new, very different, a very interesting take on the Doctor.
It's not quite a ginger Doctor, but a bearded Doctor is a close second, I guess.
Well, I've got dark hair and a little bit of ginger in the beard, so maybe Capaldi could be, a sort of sideways ginger Doctor. Just a tinge of ginge.
Well, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for on this surprise episode of Geek TV. Of course, there's only just over 3 months now until the 50th anniversary, so it won't be too long until we return. But until then, Morgan's off to throw away his fez and bow ties and start practicing his Scottish accent. And I'm off to make 457 Malcolm Tucker Doctor Who mashups and post them on YouTube. Goodbye.